Hello and welcome to Davy's Skoda Adventures and to a new series of Bring Back Max Power, where we take a look at the back issue of Max Power magazine, but this time around we're going to look at a completely new magazine. It's brought to you by the former staff writer Millsy from Max Power magazine back in the day, and it's called Maxers. So why not join me in this series as we take a look at the very first issue of Maxers magazine. And the very first edition of Maxers magazine is in this cardboard envelope. Now, disclaimer, I've already read some of the magazine. I've not completely finished it yet. But I thought we'd just do a read-along of the new edition of Maxers. So let's quickly open the cardboard envelope. So in issue 1, you got a sticker and just a little compliment slip from Millsy, just saying enjoy. And this is the actual magazine, Maxers. The Legend Return. It's a dimmer 205, but not as you know it. So you've got in the magazine you have a Renault 5 GTT, a 720 brake horsepower Supra, a Carbon R32 GTR, a Pinto GT cab, and a supercharged E46 M3. So why don't we get into the magazine? So on the cover page, we've got an advert for Time Attack, celebrating 20 years. And then we have a letter from, or the introduction from Millsy. So, Motors, Mates, Mods, Mayhem. Thank you for picking up the first issue of Maxers magazine. It probably feels a bit weird holding one of these, doesn't it? Don't try to swipe, you just have to turn the pages. We know it's old school, but we don't care, because so are we. Which also means you can expect some old school modified cars on these pages, and a bit of old school humour. Don't say you haven't been warned. Crucially, we're doing things old school by getting out and meeting the brilliant car owners, touching the metal and immersing ourselves in the scene we love. And without sounding corny, we're doing it for you. That's why we originally chose the name Maxers, an old school term for people who modified their cars. Hopefully, the magazine can also provide a kind of documentation of the periods of modified cars now and in the future. And in years to come, you'll have a bunch of them stuffed up in the attic gathering dust. Because you can't face putting so much awesomeness in the recycling bin. Apologies for that, but also if you've dusted it off and are reading this again in 2035, have you built a decent electric car yet? Millsy. Andy Millsy Mills, editor. And we then have our contents page, so we'll just move over to here. So on page 26 we have the dimmer Peugeot 205 GTI, Toyota Supra, Pinto GT Cabrio, R32 Skyline, R5 GT Turbo. Then we have a Mark 1S score. We've got Cars and Motorist on page 88. BMW, I think it's Adam from Twin Engine Corsa there. An RS Turbo. And then we have some figures in the modified car scenes. We've got Keith Desmond here turned a £350 Fiesta into this whale-tailed green beauty with some hard graft. Still only running the 1.3 engine when we featured it, he later dropped an RS turbo lump in. Then he sold it and bought an Evo X instead. Two guesses what colour that is now. Now I think Keith's Fiesta was a lockdown project. He bought in lockdown and created that. Not many married couples argue about whose car is lower, but James and Dee Barrett do, and who has the nicer paintwork, or the nicest wheels. Fortunately, the result of all of this is a pair of very awesome BMWs, and perhaps surprisingly, no divorce. A snakeskin covered Saxo that was first on the scene in 2006 was then forgotten. Nathan Powney found it many years later in a sorry state, and went on an epic mission locating many of the original parts as he restored it back to its full snakiness. What do you do when you want an Escort Cosworth but the prices are too steep? Build one from a shell. That's what Adam Faver did, adding some of his own style to things in the process. Oh, and it had 500 brake horsepower, a sequential gearbox, and was converted to rear-wheel drive. Proper naughty. An original Peugeot Ecosse 206 that Ryan finally managed to buy and get back on the road. Smoother than a freshly shaved minge, this pug needed a little bit of fettling when he bought it to get it back into show condition, but show condition it certainly is now. We've known Martin Clifford for decades now. Man, we're old, and if there's one thing we know about him, is he builds very clean cars. This Nissan Skyline R33 GTR was no exception. It was quick too, as you'd expect from 736 brake horsepower. As he says, it's a lot of an animal. Andrew Swede Parsons is probably old enough to know better, but he couldn't help salvaging this crazy Corsa when it came up. Turns out he's a serial car buyer showgoer and sold this soon after the shoot and currently owns a snakeskin Saxo. Well, at the time of writing anyway. Maxers, where have you been? This page is mainly to give a shout out to the legends whose cars we've featured before. The poor saps who didn't get themselves in the UK's best multi-mark tuning magazine called Maxers. Because we hadn't launched it yet. In fact, we didn't even know we'd make one. And we're reasonably happy at running the features on www.maxers.co.uk and on the YouTube channel, but here we are. Now Keith, James and Dee, Nathan, Adam, Ryan, Martin, Swede and Zach, along with the cars I've built, are getting a moment of printed glory to the left and below, even if most of them have now moved on to new project cars. We've even added QR codes linking to our online features if you want to read more. You'll also find James Pearson's double Astra feature on there and a bunch of shows, events and updates on our own project builds from the past 4 or 5 years. The website and YouTube channel tell the story of Maxers so far in some ways, but if you're coming at this fresh-faced, then here's a quick history lesson. Started by Millsy and Dan, who worked on the best-selling modified car magazine in the UK, around the turn of the millennium, they set out to try and bring a bit of that old-school flavour back. It helped that events like the reunion show were attempting to do similar at the time. And it was going okay. Views were happening, subscribers were subscribing, but it just felt something was missing. And not just their talent, it missed a start and an end, it missed something solid, the sort of thing pages of a magazine can offer. When things stalled as Dan couldn't devote time to it, the idea of a magazine remained. A year or so later, Millsy pushed ahead, aiming to put it together in a few months, with the help of a few friends, and a surprising number of offers of help too. It seemed like people were keen to see themselves and other Maxers in print, in a magazine. They felt they could call their own. We just want somewhere for people like you and us to feel at home, be seen, be heard and enjoy ourselves. We hope we've achieved that in some way, and with your support we'll see you again in issue 2. And we'll just finish this part with Zach. So Maxers first met Zach Parker about 22 years ago when we were shooting a Nissan GTR for the cover of a well-known magazine built by his dad, Bob of GBH Motorsport. Now Zach's all growing up and a right little drifting monkey with his awesome custom-built E36 BMW to prove it. So that is just an introduction to issue 1 of Maxers magazine. We'll be back in part 2 as we continue our look at the first edition of Maxers magazine. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Davy's Skoda Adventures, and we'll catch you soon in another video.